Hello there and welcome to the news tonight. And tonight, of course, we are talking about the budget and what Arun Jaitley has, of course, given us today, especially when it concerns the Aam Aadmi. That's what we'll be talking about later in the show. But first, let's take you through the headlines. Arun Jaitley presents his first full-fledged union budget, says it's India's time to fly, insists economic credibility has been re-established. Status quo on tax slabs, wealth tax replaced by 2% surcharge for 1 crore plus earners, corporate tax lowered. Jaitley pushes back by a year medium-term goal of cutting deficit. Government to target 3.9% in 2015. GST to be implemented next year. General Anti-Avoidance Rules or GAR pushed back by 2 years. Steps announced for massive crackdown on black money. The stock markets and industry leaders give the budget a thumbs up, calling it forward-looking and implementable. Prime Minister applauds the budget as pragmatic and prudent. Well, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today announced a budget that was aimed at high growth. But he said that the pace of cutting fiscal deficit could slow down as he was seeking to boost investment and ensure that ordinary people benefit.
High growth and investment boost and sticking to the fiscal deficit limits were some of the key drivers of Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's union budget on Saturday. Starting his speech with remarks that the world expected this was India's chance to fly, Jaitley promised that growth will accelerate to between 8 and 8.5%.
Based on the new series, estimated GDP for 14-15 is 7.4%. Growth in 2015-16 is expected to be between 8 and 8.5%. Aiming for a double-digit rate seems feasible very soon.
Jaitley also promised that he will stand by the fiscal deficit target of 4.1% of the GDP for this fiscal year. But he pushed back by a year his medium-term goal of cutting deficit to 3% of GDP. In 2015-2016, the deficit will be 3.9% of the GDP, up from 3.6% target inherited from the last government.
In these circumstances, I will complete the journey to a fiscal deficit of 3% in 3 years rather than 2 years as envisaged previously. Thus, the next 3 years, my targets are 3.9% for 15-16, 3.5% for 16-17, and 3% for 17-18. The additional fiscal space will go towards funding infrastructure investment.
Presenting his maiden full-fledged budget, Jaitley was assisted by the good fortune enjoyed by the current NDA government, that is reaping not only the benefits of low global oil prices but also a consistently low inflation rate.
Madam Speaker, we have turned around the economy, dramatically restoring macroeconomic stability and creating conditions for sustainable poverty elimination, job creation, durable double-digit economic growth. Domestic and international investors are seeing us with renewed interest and hope.
An overhaul of economic data has propelled the economy into the top of the league of fast-growing major economies. And with the current account deficit projected to fall below 1% next year, the rupee is only expected to stabilize further. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And on the taxation front, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley abolished wealth tax on the super-rich and assured a 5% cut in corporate tax over the next 4 years. But most notable, especially for the Aam Aadmi, is the rise in service tax to 14% that will increase everyday expenses. Here's a report.
The rich and wealthy must pay more tax than the less affluent ones. I have therefore decided to abolish wealth tax and replace it with an additional 2% surcharge on the super rich with a taxable income of over rupees 1 crore.
A landmark measure that the Finance Minister said would ensure greater compliance and widen the tax base. He said some 9,000 crore rupees would be the added revenue from the move. He also announced measures for job creation and investment revival. Of this, a critical step is deferment of the general anti-avoidance rule GAR by 2 years to accelerate investment momentum. Modification of PE, permanent establishment norms, to encourage more fund managers to operate from within India. For new startups, income tax on royalty and fees for technical services is to be reduced from 25% to 20%. A move to make domestic industry competitive came as a tax easing for the corporate sector.
I therefore propose to reduce the rate of corporate tax for 30% to 25% over the next 4 years. This will lead to higher level of investment, higher level of growth, and more jobs.
Another big thrust area is the goods and services tax to be implemented by April 2016, and for this, a roadmap in the direction of raising services tax.
Introduction of GST is clearly awaited by trade and industry. To facilitate smooth transition of levy of tax on services by both centre and states, it is proposed to increase the present rate of service tax plus education cess from 12.36 to a consolidated rate of 14%.
The move is expected to have a sharp fallout on cost of daily services. Cess is also to be levied for the Swachh Bharat and Clean Ganga campaigns. Clean energy cess from 100 rupees to 200 rupees per metric ton of coal, etc., to finance clean environment initiatives. On the indirect taxes front, the finance minister proposed reducing basic customs duty on certain inputs, raw materials, intermediates and components in 22 items. Perhaps the most keenly watched part of the budget, the benefits to middle-class taxpayers. No changes in the tax slabs again this time, but the finance minister did have many other things to offer. Increase the limit of deduction in respect of health insurance premium from 15,000 rupees to 25,000 rupees. The limit on deduction on account of contribution to a pension fund and the new pension scheme is proposed to be increased from 1 lakh rupees to 1.5 lakh rupees. An additional deduction of 50,000 rupees is being proposed to be provided for contribution to the new pension scheme under Section 80 CCD, and transport allowance exemption is being increased from 800 rupees to 1,600 rupees per annum. Inclusion of yoga under the ambit of charitable purposes in the IT Act, a rejection of the overall direct taxes code saying the best points have already been harnessed were some of the other features. The finance minister projected a 15,068 crore rupee net revenue gain from taxes. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
All right, let's take this further and get a perspective as to what the middle class actually gets. We've got TK Arun, who's the editor of Opinion on Economic Times, joining us in studio this evening. Good evening, Arun. Give us a sense. We'll talk about what the middle class gets, but first of all, give us a sense of what did you think of the budget?
See, it's on the whole positive. It is not wildly exciting. It is no great leap forward. It's a decent budget which looks at the medium term. See, the thing that I liked about the budget is that it sort of seeks to implement a strategy that the government already has in place. It tries to implement Make in India, Digital India, Skill India, Swachh Bharat, all the schemes that the government has announced in the past. They sort of dovetail into an overall strategy of entrepreneurship and seeks to take it forward.
All right, but then
what I do not like is the fact that the overall budget has shrunk to 12.6% of GDP. This is the smallest budget in recent history. Most developed economies have government expenditure about 30% of GDP. In India, it used to be 17% in the 90s. It has gradually been shrinking, and now it has shrunk very fast to 12.6% of GDP. At a time when the economy is yet to recover fully, shrinking the size of the government might not be particularly helpful for promoting growth.
All right. We are, of course, talking about expectations, and you have to agree with me, the corporate sector is definitely much more happier. Just give us a sense really what the middle class gets. What is the common man's perspective at this point?
See, the common man doesn't just look at the immediate short-term effect, whether my cooking gas cylinder has gone up a little bit or not. He wants to know whether the future is bright or not. Will there be growth in the economy? Will enough investment materialize in infrastructure to allow the future generations to have a better life than they themselves had? All these things have to be answered. I mean, you cannot say that just by this budget that everything will be nice and fine. But the sense is that there is a sense of creative purpose and there is clear promotion of entrepreneurship, and that is a good thing. But let me tell you one thing. This great hoo-ha about black money, this is a complete piece of nonsense, given that there is no attempt whatsoever to clean up the source of corruption in the entire system, which is political funding. Does any political party declare its audited accounts which reveal the true extent of its income or expenditure? They spend tens of thousands of crores and show a few hundred crores their income and expenditure. And to generate money to feed political parties, companies are in fact compelled to generate black money. So unless you tackle this, you clean up political funding, you cannot do anything serious about black money. So not having addressed that,
Yes.
I think the rest of the spell on black money control, I think is meaningless.
All right. We'll of course be talking about black money and what Arun Jaitley actually said about it in a little later on the show. But while you are still with us, Arun, also give us a sense really of by and large the kind of sense that you're getting also from the corporate sector at this point of time. They seem to be at least India Inc. and even the markets responding pretty positively to this budget.
See, what our captains of industry say is almost always invariably the same. This is a great budget. In my experience all these years, I haven't heard a single industrialist criticize any budget at any point of time.
They probably will after a few months, of course.
But I think on the whole they have reason to be happy
Yes.
that the rates of corporate tax will come down. At the same time, some of the exemptions will also go away, which means those who have been relying extensively on tax planning will actually see their tax incidence rising. So it will not be uniformly happy for everybody, but on the whole, I think they will be happy. But they will be happier still if the government allows greater freedom to economic agents and create facilities where entrepreneurship thrives.
All right, T.K. Arun, editor with the Economic Times, joining us. Thanks so much for joining us, giving us your perspective. I think, the key word being big bang reforms, something that we, perhaps was lacking in this, and I think that is why it came to such mixed reactions. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us and talking about black money. Strong steps to be taken by the government, at least it's what it's claiming, to combat the black money issue, and it got huge focus in the budget proposals, extending from a new law against black money with strong punishment against offenders to checking Benami property deals. Here's more.
Madam Speaker, the first and foremost pillar of my tax proposals is to effectively deal with the problem of black money, which eats into the vitals of our economy and society. The problem of poverty and inequity cannot be eliminated unless generation of black money and its concealment is dealt with effectively and forcefully.
The issue figured on top of Part B of Arun Jaitley's budget on the tax proposals. As he pointed out, several measures initiated in this direction under this government. Jaitley laid down the action plan against black money for the road ahead. He proposed a new law on black money that would make concealment of foreign assets punishable by imprisonment of up to 10 years, with penalty being 300% of income concealed. Non-filing of returns will be punishable by up to 7 years. A new Benami transaction prohibitions bill is to be introduced in the current session of Parliament to check Benami property and block a major avenue for generation of black money. CBDT and CBEC will have access to each other's database. There's also a proposal to amend the Income Tax Act to prohibit acceptance or payment of an advance of 20,000 or more in cash for purchase of immovable property. Coating of PAN is being made mandatory for any purchase or sale exceeding the value of 1 lakh. Bringing home black money stashed overseas and strong steps against the menace within the country has been a key election promise of this government. How soon the present promises can be implemented and how effective they can be will be closely watched. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
We'll have a quick break here, but on the other side, we'll take a look at some allocations to some pet projects of the government and how the government approached key sectors to the economy.
In the Maths Factor, we travel through time and space and see how maths has evolved and how it is a part of the world around us. Join us on Rajya Sabha Television Watch the Maths Factor every Sunday at 8 a.m.
Welcome back. Now, the Finance Minister has pledged major investment in infrastructure in today's budget. For the farmers, the government raised agriculture credit targeted by 50,000 crores to 8.5 lakh crores for 2015-16. Here's a look at some of those highlights.
The Finance Minister has underlined the commitment to revive the investment cycle by increasing public expenditure and capital formation. The budget provides additional funds for investment in infrastructure, 70,000 crore rupees more in 2015-16 over previous year. The government has set up National Investment and Infrastructure Fund with a contribution of 20,000 crore rupees. Rail and road companies can also issue tax-free infrastructure bonds to raise funds for investment. Government will also establish 5 ultra-mega power projects. This will catalyze investments of 1 lakh crore rupees.
The credibility of the Indian economy has been re-established. The world is predicting that it is India's chance to fly.
There was also some cheer for the farmers in the general budget today. The Finance Minister raised agriculture credit target by 50,000 crore rupees in next financial year and announced financial support to enhance irrigation and soil health for increased productivity. An additional 25,000 crore rupees was allotted to support agriculture sector with the help of effective and hassle-free agricultural credit.
Farm credit underpins the efforts of our hard-working farmers. I have therefore set up an ambitious target of rupees 8.5 lakh crores of credit during the year 15-16, which I am sure the banks will surpass.
The social sector was allotted 79,526 crore rupees for rural development, including the Manrega, and rupees 5,000 crore based on need. He also announced a slew of low-cost pension and insurance schemes, including Atal Pension Yojana and Universal Social Security Scheme.
The government has decided to continue to supporting important national priorities such as agriculture, education, health, Manrega, rural infrastructure, including roads program targeted for the poor and underprivileged, which will be all continued by us.
For senior citizens, the government proposes to create Senior Citizen Welfare Fund with unclaimed deposit of 9,000 crore rupees in PPF or EPF schemes. The government will also provide cover in accidental death at a premium of 330 rupees per year under Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Yojana. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the government's much publicized projects of Make in India and Swachh Bharat also got their expected share of attention in the Finance Minister's budget proposals. The budget laid out a broad agenda for both these projects.
Among the key thrust areas of the budget proposals, the Finance Minister devoted considerable attention to the Make in India project of the Prime Minister. Calling the current manufacturing slowdown as a major challenge of the government, Jaitley said,
Our third challenge is that manufacturing has declined from 18% to 17% of GDP, and as per the new GDP data, the manufacturing exports have remained stagnant at about 10% of the GDP. The Make in India program is aimed at making this challenge, thus of creating jobs.
As part of its initiatives under the program, Jaitley said the government will target promotion of domestic manufacturing for job creation. A tax pass-through will be allowed to both Category 1 and Category 2 alternative investment funds. Permanent establishment norms will be modified to encourage fund managers to relocate to India. General anti-avoidance rule will be deferred by 2 years. Investment concessions for manufacturing units in backward areas of Andhra and Telangana. Reduction of income tax on royalty for technical services. Benefit of deduction for employment of new regular workmen. Reduction of custom duty on certain inputs, raw materials, intermediates and components in 22 items reduced. The Swachh Bharat movement, on the other hand, will be nurtured through a 100% deduction for contributions to Swachh Bharat Kosh and the Clean Ganga Fund. A clean energy cess that was increased from 100 to 200 per metric ton of coal. An increase in excise duty on bags of polymers of ethylene other than for industrial use from 12% to 15%. A Swachh Bharat cess at the rate of 2% or less could be imposed on all services depending on the need. Service tax exemption on services by common affluent treatment plants. Extension of concessions on custom and excise duty available to electrically operated vehicles and hybrid vehicles. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In fact, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also announced a significant increase in service tax in the coming year. Rates, in fact, have been hiked 14% from the current 12.3%, impacting prices of a whole range of day-to-day products. Take a look.
The finance minister may have made exemptions for the middle class, but he certainly made things costlier as well. Eating out with your family is just one of them. After a hike in service tax from the current 12.36% to 14%, visits to amusement parks, concerts and sporting events will also get costlier. You'll also have to shell out more money for phone bills. The finance minister also came down heavily on smokers and tobacco consumers with a steep increase in excise rate. The excise duty on tobacco was raised to 70 rupees per kg from the current 60 rupees per kilo. Liquor has also become expensive. So too imported commercial vehicles, cement, aerated flavored drinks and packaged water, plastic bags and sacks. But not everything is going up though. Service tax exemption was extended to services of cold storage of fruits and vegetables and ambulance services. Excise duty was reduced on several day-to-day items like leather footwear priced above 1,000 rupees per pair, locally made mobile phones, LED LCD panels, LED lights and lamps, computer tablets, microwave ovens, refrigerator compressors and agarbattis. According to the finance minister, the present rates were increased in order to facilitate a smooth transition to levy of tax on services by both the centre and the states. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, not related, but of course, talk about timing. Prices of petrol and diesel have been raised by about 3 rupees a litre each from midnight tonight. Government-owned oil companies announced a hike in petrol price by 3 rupees 18 paise a litre and diesel by 3 rupees 9 paise per litre. Petrol would now cost 60 rupees 49 paise per litre in the capital. Brent crude prices on Saturday rolled, in fact, $2.53 to 62.58 per barrel. February's 18% gain, in fact, was the biggest monthly percentage rise since May 2009. And now let's take you through some quick budget highlights. Allocation for defence for the next financial year will be 2,46,727 crore against 2,22,370 crores in the current year. Giving a push to Make in India policy in defence manufacturing, Arun Jaitley said government was following a policy of transparency and quick decision-making in procurement. In a boost to tourism, Jaitley announced visa on arrival for 150 countries from the current 43 countries in stages. Jaitley said last year's move facilitated additional tourist inflows. He also said that the government will invest in heritage sites to enhance standards of security, amenities and illumination. A national skills mission through the Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Ministry will be launched soon. The mission will consolidate skill initiatives spread across several ministries. Finance Minister also proposed a 1,000 crore fund for creating a mechanism called self-employment and talent utilization. The budget also allocated 68,968 crores to the education sector, including midday meals. Finance Minister proposed increasing education cess to 14% from the current 12.36%. He said education cess and secondary and higher education cess shall be subsumed in the new service tax rate. And that's it for this hour. Thanks for watching Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you.